The story of Prophet Yusuf. A gentle journey through patience, faith, and forgiveness. There are stories that entertain the heart. There are stories that teach the mind. And then there are stories that quietly change the way a person sees life. Tonight, I invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Take a slow breath, and allow your heart to become still. Leave behind, just for a little while,
the noise of the world, the worries, the unanswered questions, the things you cannot control, and listen. Because tonight we are going to travel back through the pages of time, to a world of deserts and distant lands, to a story of jealousy, separation, hardship, temptation, patience, and forgiveness. A story about a young boy who lost almost everything, yet never lost his faith in God. A story about a man who was thrown into darkness, yet carried light within his heart. A story about a prophet whose life reminds us that sometimes the longest road leads to the most beautiful destination. This is the story of Prophet Yusuf, Joseph, peace be upon him. So let us begin, slowly, quietly, with an open heart. Part 1. The Beautiful Dream. Long ago in the land of Canaan there lived a young boy named Yusuf. He was the son of Prophet Yaqub, Jacob, peace be upon him. Yusuf was still young. His world was small. It was made of family, home, open skies, and the familiar landscapes of his childhood. But even at a young age, something extraordinary was about to enter his life. One day, Yusuf approached his father. There was something in his heart, something he had seen, something he could not fully understand. He said to his father, "My dear father, I have seen 11 stars, and the sun and the moon. I saw them prostrating to me." It was a remarkable dream, and Yaqub understood that this was not an ordinary dream. His father listened carefully. He knew that dreams could carry meanings known only to God. So Yaqub gently warned his son not to tell his brothers about the dream. He feared that jealousy might enter their hearts, because Yusuf had brothers, and among them were feelings that Yusuf, in his innocence, could not yet understand. Yaqub loved his son deeply, and perhaps he sensed that Yusuf's life would not be an ordinary one. Sometimes, a parent sees danger before a child can see it. Sometimes, love is expressed not through long speeches, but through a simple warning. Do not tell your brothers. And Yusuf listened. But destiny had already begun to unfold. Part 2. The jealous brothers. Yusuf's brothers noticed the special love their father had for him. Jealousy is a strange thing. It begins quietly, a thought, a comparison, a feeling of being overlooked. And if a person allows it to grow, it can become something much darker. The brothers began speaking among themselves. They wondered why their father seemed to love Yusuf and his brother more. Instead of asking themselves how to become better, they began thinking about how to remove the person they believed stood in their way. Eventually, they came up with a terrible plan. They would take Yusuf away. They would leave him somewhere far from home. And then, they believed, their father's attention would return to them. Imagine that moment, a young boy walking with his brothers, trusting them, not knowing what they had decided. Yusuf did not know that the people beside him were carrying a secret that would change his life forever. His brothers took him away, and eventually, they threw him into a deep well, a dark place, a lonely place, a place where a young child could easily have believed that his life was over. Imagine Yusuf there. Above him, the opening of the well. Below him, darkness, no familiar voice, no comforting home, no father beside him, only silence. But even in that darkness, God was with him, and that is one of the most beautiful lessons of this story. A person may feel alone, but being alone is not the same as being abandoned by God. The world may become dark, but God does not disappear from the darkness. Part 3. The Well. The brothers returned home. They had to face their father. They came with a false story. They claimed that Yusuf had been taken by a wolf, and they brought his shirt with false evidence. But Yaqub knew that something was wrong. A father's heart can sometimes sense what words cannot reveal. He did not accept their story. Instead, he turned to God. He chose patience, a beautiful patience, a patience that does not mean that pain is absent, but that faith remains present despite the pain. Meanwhile, far away from his family, Yusuf remained in the well. Then something unexpected happened. A group of travelers passed by. They sent someone to draw water. The bucket descended, and when it came back up, there was a boy, Yusuf, a human being where they expected only water. They found him, and they took him with them. Yusuf's life was changing again. He had been a child in his father's home, then a prisoner in a well. Now, he was being carried toward a land he had never known, Egypt. He did not know what awaited him there. He did not know how long his journey would be, but God knew, and sometimes that is enough. You do not need to know the entire road. You only need to trust the one who knows where the road leads. Part 4. A New Life in Egypt. Yusuf was taken to Egypt and sold. A powerful man in Egypt purchased him. He instructed his household to treat Yusuf well. Yusuf was no longer in the well. He had food, shelter, a place to live. But he was still far from home. He was still separated from his father, still separated from the life he once knew, and yet God was preparing him, because sometimes a door closes, not because your story is ending, but because another door is about to open. Yusuf grew, and God granted him wisdom and knowledge. His beauty was apparent. But his greatest beauty was not in his appearance. It was in his character, his patience, his honesty, his faith, his ability to remain pure in a world filled with temptation. And soon, Yusuf would face one of the greatest tests of his life. Part 5. The Great Test. The wife of the man in whose house Yusuf lived attempted to tempt him. She desired him. But Yusuf refused. He knew that some choices may seem attractive for a moment, yet leave a person with regret for years. He said in essence that he sought refuge in God. He chose obedience over desire. He chose faith over temptation. He chose what was right, even when no one might have known what happened behind closed doors. And that is one of the greatest measures of character. Who are you when nobody is watching? Yusuf knew that God was watching. He ran toward the door, and the situation became known. Evidence showed that Yusuf had been truthful, but even though he was innocent, his troubles did not immediately end. Sometimes, doing the right thing does not immediately make life easier. Sometimes, you can be innocent and still suffer. You can tell the truth and still be misunderstood. You can choose God and still face hardship. But Yusuf continued, because his trust was not built on circumstances. His trust was built on God. Part 6. The Prison. Eventually, Yusuf was imprisoned. Think about the journey. A beloved child, thrown into a well, taken away from his family, sold in a foreign land, tested by temptation, and now a prisoner. If Yusuf had judged his life only by what he could see, he might have thought, "Why is this happening to me?" But Yusuf did not allow hardship to destroy his character. Even in prison, he remained a source of goodness. He did not say, "I am suffering, therefore I no longer care about others." Instead, he continued to help people. 2 prisoners came to him with dreams. They asked Yusuf to interpret them. But before he interpreted their dreams, Yusuf spoke to them about God. What a beautiful quality. He did not wait for perfect circumstances to do good. He did not wait until he was free. He did not wait until his problems disappeared. He served God where he was, in a palace, in a house, in a prison. Faith can live anywhere. Part 7. The King's Dream. Years passed. Then the king of Egypt had a strange dream. He saw 7 fat cows being eaten by 7 thin cows. He also saw 7 green ears of grain and 7 others that were dry. The people around him could not explain the dream. Then someone remembered Yusuf, the man who had once been in prison, the man who could interpret dreams. Yusuf was brought forward. But notice something important. Yusuf did not use this opportunity to seek revenge. He did not say, "Now you need me." He did not use his knowledge to humiliate others. He simply explained the dream. There would be 7 years of abundance, then 7 difficult years of famine, and Yusuf explained what should be done during the years of abundance to prepare for the years of hardship. His wisdom was recognized, and suddenly, the prisoner was no longer simply a prisoner. The man who had once been forgotten was now being trusted with responsibility. But before accepting a position of authority, Yusuf wanted the truth about his past to become clear. He wanted his innocence to be known. And eventually, the truth emerged. The accusation against him was exposed as false. Yusuf had been innocent. After years of hardship, his name was cleared. Part 8. From prison to power. What a transformation. The same man who had once stood in a dark well was now standing in a position of great responsibility. The same man who had once been sold was now trusted with the affairs of the land. The same man who had once been imprisoned was now helping an entire nation prepare for famine. But Yusuf did not become arrogant. He did not forget God. He did not forget his father. He did not forget where he came from. And then, the famine arrived. People began traveling from distant lands to seek food. Among those who came to Egypt were Yusuf's brothers. His past had suddenly returned. The brothers who had thrown him into the well were standing before him, but they did not recognize him. Imagine the scene. Years had passed. The young boy they had abandoned was now a powerful man before them, and they had no idea. Yusuf knew them, but they did not know Yusuf. Part 9. The Return of the Brothers. The brothers came seeking provisions. Yusuf treated them with fairness. He did not immediately reveal himself. He wanted his younger brother to remain with him. Eventually, the brothers returned again, and the story became more complicated. They faced hardship. They experienced uncertainty. And slowly, the truth began approaching them. Finally, Yusuf revealed his identity. He said to his brothers, "I am Yusuf." Can you imagine the silence that followed? The people standing before them were not a stranger. He was their brother, the boy they had abandoned, the brother they had believed was gone, the one whose life they had tried to destroy. And now, he had power over them. They could have expected revenge. They could have expected punishment. They could have expected anger. But Yusuf chose something far greater. Forgiveness. Part 10. Forgiveness. Yusuf did not allow the pain of his past to control his future. He forgave. This is one of the most powerful moments in the entire story, because revenge can feel powerful. But forgiveness requires something deeper. It requires strength. Yusuf could have reminded his brothers of every painful moment. He could have made them feel the fear that he once felt. He could have punished them for what they had done. But instead, he chose mercy. He recognized that God had brought him through the darkness. The well had not destroyed him. Slavery had not destroyed him. Temptation had not destroyed him. Prison had not destroyed him. And now, he would not allow hatred to destroy his heart. What a lesson for every human being. Sometimes the greatest victory is not defeating the person who hurt you. Sometimes the greatest victory is becoming a person whom hatred cannot control. Part 11. The Father and the Son. The story was not finished. Yusuf's father, Yaqub, had spent years grieving for his beloved son, but Yaqub never abandoned hope in God. His heart had been broken, yet his faith remained. Eventually, Yusuf's brothers returned with the news. Yusuf was alive, and more than alive. He was safe. He had become a person of great responsibility. Yaqub traveled to Egypt, and after all those years, father and son were reunited. Think about that moment. Years of separation, years of tears, years of uncertainty, and finally, a reunion. The family came together. The old wound was beginning to heal, and Yusuf's childhood dream The dream of the stars, the sun, and the moon had now reached its fulfillment. What once seemed impossible had become reality. But Yusuf understood something important. The dream was not fulfilled because life had always been easy. It was fulfilled because God had guided him through every difficult chapter. The well, the journey, the palace, the prison, the position of power, the reunion. Every chapter had been part of a larger story. Part 12, the lesson of Yusuf. And now, let us step away from the ancient land of Egypt. Let us return to our own lives, because perhaps you are listening to this story while carrying a burden of your own. Perhaps you are waiting for something. Perhaps someone has hurt you. Perhaps you have lost someone you love. Perhaps you are facing a door that seems impossible to open. Perhaps you are wondering, why is this happening to me? Remember Yusuf. He did not know the reason when he was inside the well. He did not know the reason when he was taken away. He did not know the reason when he was imprisoned. But God knew, and sometimes you are standing inside a chapter that makes no sense because you have not yet reached the next chapter. A difficult chapter is not necessarily the end of the story. A closed door is not necessarily rejection. A delay is not necessarily failure. And a painful journey is not necessarily a meaningless journey. Yusuf teaches us patience. He teaches us purity. He teaches us trust. He teaches us that truth may take time, but truth does not become false simply because it takes time to appear, and perhaps most beautifully, he teaches us forgiveness. Final reflection. So tonight, if your heart is tired, rest. If you are waiting, be patient. If you have been hurt, do not allow pain to turn your heart into something you are not. If you are confused about your future, remember that Yusuf did not know what was waiting for him either. He only knew the one who was guiding him. You do not have to see the entire road. Sometimes, you only need enough light for the next step. And when life places you in a dark place, remember the well. When life tests your character, remember Yusuf. When you are tempted to give up, remember his patience. And when someone hurts you, remember his forgiveness. Because the story of Yusuf is not merely a story about a prophet who lived long ago, it is a reminder that God can bring light from darkness, hope from sorrow, strength from hardship, and a beautiful ending from a chapter that once seemed unbearable. So take a deep breath. Let your heart become peaceful, whatever you are facing tonight. You do not need to solve your entire life before you sleep. Leave what you cannot control in the hands of God. Trust Him, be patient, keep walking, because you never know. Perhaps the darkest chapter you are living through today is quietly preparing you for the most beautiful chapter of your life. Thank you for listening to this story. May its lessons remain with you. May your heart find peace. May your patience become stronger. And may you always remember that even when the road becomes dark, you are never beyond the mercy of God. Until we meet again, take care of your heart, keep faith, keep hope, and remember, every story has a beginning, every hardship has an end, and sometimes the most beautiful chapters are written after the darkest nights. Good night, and may peace be upon you.